Hello everybody and welcome to my first Lord of the Rings Middle Earth SBG battle report. I want to experiment with a different format here. Most of the time you'll see video battle reports. Sometimes you'll see a video battle report with narration. Sometimes you see it's live. What I want to try is here actually some still images, using some of my new toys to illustrate those a little bit and maybe give you a little bit better close-up view of some things, because with Lord of the Rings you usually get a scrum either early or late, or somewhere in some point in the game everybody's just jammed together and the video just gets to be a little bit of a mess, and I want to see what's going to happen with this. But first we got to get to the scenario, and the scenario I think is number 7 out of the original 12, and it's about the artifact. We happen to have actually a little scratch built palantir that I made, so that was our artifact, and one or both of us, we've got to try and grab that thing and run off the board. And that second paragraph, you see taking the palantir off the enemy board edge, 7 points. Carry it off your own is 5, and I believe you just have it in your possession, it's worth 3, so that's the big score right there. You also have the secondary objectives with the wounding leaders, broken, unbroken, that sort of thing. But let's get to, this is the fun part that I enjoyed, the secret missions. And I think there's either 9 or 12 of these. Now I believe the way it's supposed to work is you pick 3, then you tell your opponent which 3 you picked, then you roll a d3 and that's your secret. We kept the whole process secret, which we kind of agreed actually made it a little more fun, because you just had no idea what the other guy was going to be doing. Just no clue whatsoever. You look at the Easterling objective on the top, that was keep the lowest point cost hero alive, I believe, till the end of the game. 3 points, and it turned out to be the War Priest, much to my surprise, because I just assumed, okay, captain, but he was also on a horse as a cataphract, and that just made him enough points to be more than the War Priest. And actually at first I was, oh man, but actually it was fine, because the War Priest, well, how much magic potential does he have? And might, not a lot. If I use it early, then I can just kind of get him out of the way and keep him off to the side. Now, the Army of the Dead Gondor Alliance, all they had to do was occupy a ruin, and when you see the board, you'll see that that wasn't the most difficult 3 points to get in the history of 3 points. So we'll get to that soon enough. But first, we're going to get to some of the units and stuff that was out there. Easterling Mordor Alliance. You had Amdur on a horse with the cataphracts and the banner and drums. That's not horns, that's actually should be drums there. The drums for me, I don't leave home without them. Gotta have the drums, because that extra 5 inches of movement on your cataphracts and the extra 3 on your infantry, it's important in any mission, but this one especially. You got your Dragon Knight there, and splitting up the black dragons. See 3 and 3 sword and pikes. Then you've got War Priest, and that's another 6 black dragons. That's split up, 3 sword, 3 pikes. And the last warband, that's where you've got your Ring Wraith and his 5 Morghul Knights with a horn. Ignore the 6 black dragons, they were not part of that. He was one of those self-constructed Ring Wraiths, right? What, 2 might, 11 will, 2 fate, and the horn, which I didn't realize how important that was going to be, because I never had a war horn before. And with all the terror causing stuff out there, and the special thing that as we get to it, the King of the Dead had, where he I think within a certain radius of him, he lowers your courage by 1. But let's get over here to the left-hand side, and that's going to be Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, obviously a banner. And I think he had 8 Knights of Minas Tirith, Shield and Lance. I don't think there was a captain in there, which was helpful later on in the game. I mean, Boromir has 6 might on his own. He also had the Avenger Bolt Thrower, had the upgrade as well, which was going to give him the 2 dice, 2d6, pick the one that he wanted. And as far as the King of the Dead, again, he had that little courage drain right there. I don't know if it was called drain courage, but that's what it did. 15 Army of the Dead, and I think it was split up with 6 spears and 9 hand weapons. He also had a banner. We'll mark that out too. So what we're going to do is we're going to just get to the board right here. Now, you'll have to forgive the lack of color and foliage here on the board, because the person whose house we were at had just moved there a week before, and they were really more thinking about how do we get food in the house and a place to eat the food. So setting up a gaming table was kind of not on the highest of priorities, so you'll have to forgive the lack of the painted terrain there. What we are going to do is we're going to get to deployment. Now, here's my little whiteboard function. So I just circled our Palantir over there. We've got our Army of the Dead, your Avenger Bolt Thrower, and there's Boromir and his lads for me. And we'll go over this a little more individually. You've got your Morghul Knights and Wraith, Infantry Unit number 1 over here. I believe this had the Dragon Knight in it. Over here, another infantry unit. This had your War Priest. And then in here that's the King Kong unit. That's got Amdur, the Banner, a Captain, all Cataphracts, all Black Knights. Everything was a Black Knight across the board. Now, you can see, look at this window. And sorry if the lines are not totally straight. There's a narrow firing window if you wanted to get after me. Because don't forget, I've got a war drum, which means these guys are moving 9, these guys are moving 9, these guys are going to move 15. So I'm going to get to somewhere in this neighborhood, and the Army of the Dead's going to be more over here. He's obviously, I mean, these guys are just immovable. They may not kill a lot, but they can just stick me here. And then, well, Cav does something like this, and with 6 might and that many lances, that could hurt. The bolt thrower was really more about, I believe, it was just area denial and control, because he's obviously trying to force me to go this way, and the bolt thrower can shoot at that. Now, here's their objectives, and we'll mark these out, but see this building right over here? That's one of 2 buildings. It's in their deployment zone. So it's going to be pretty much impossible for me to keep them away from that. But I didn't know. It could have been, take these forests, because that's one of the secret objectives you could get. You see I've got my Morghul Knights over here on the right. Couple of things they were going to do. Let's say Army of the Dead comes in here and they get the Palantir. Well, if anything, they could at least keep them from moving off of that board edge, while my own cavalry could maybe squeeze them in, maybe hurt them enough to take away the Palantir. And it could also, here my Morghul Knights could do something like this, and they could basically just form a wall, and I could maybe, using my war drum, kind of do a little bit of a rollout here, doing the old quarterback, a designed rollout to the right hand side, with his cab being all the way over here, and potentially with the drum that's right here, my foot cavalry, as I like to call it. It's moving almost as fast as Boromir and his guys over here. So what we're going to do is, let's get a little bit closer. So again, there's your ring wraith, and we've got, 3 lances in here, and over here is our horn. That is going to counteract the king and his ability to drain down my courage, which actually is high, because Easterlings have some of the highest courage there. So again, you see here your Dragon Knight with the 2 blades. I believe that's actually the Amdur infantry miniature. That's why I'm going to have little icons there so you can see it. And you can see my horsies over there. Speaking of horsies, here is Boromir and a whole bunch of lances. And there's your Avenger Bolt Thrower. Again, maybe this could have gone, say, up here. Any place over here, it just would have been useless. So maybe up on top of this hill here could have been a little better. It's neither here nor there. Army of the Dead, there's your king with the red base. And behind him there's Harold with the herald, and that was a troublesome banner to say the least. And then you've got the rest of your Army of the Dead spears supporting from behind. Now, just to show you this a little bit closer, so here's what my Easterlings look like. Now, as I mentioned before, I do lots and lots of painting tutorials. I have some of my Easterlings on just YouTube Live on the YouTube channel, some sessions there. These guys were all painted as part of my Army Painter series on the Patreon page. So the guy on the left, I know he's pretty much just a captain. He is functioning as Amdur on foot. In the middle is your Dragon Knight. And over on the left-hand or right-hand side, that's going to be your War Priest. Now, I have to convert one. Eventually, I'll get to that. Let's see if we can get to some more of your infantry there. I had no bows in this game. Eventually, I want to experiment, because while they don't necessarily shoot very well, Black Dragon bows, they can kind of stand out there in the open and get shot at way more than, say, I don't know, a Harad archer or a wood elf that's basically naked. Now here's your Morghul Knights. This was another army painting series, but this time you see those oil brushers there? I actually did it in oil paints. That was a blast. I really love this series. You can see I'm working on my basing there, and there's what they look like. So this was actually only 4 episodes, because it really showed how oils make things go faster. I mean, it's kind of like orcs. Red orcs go faster, while here, Black Morghul Knights and oils, they went faster. And there's your title screen for the video. So, like I said, what we're going to do, here, let me get back to my map over here. And now again, the building in the back, that's the ruin in their deployment zone. There was a building over here in mine. So that's another one they could control. They only got 3 points no matter if they control one or both. So what we're going to do then is we will go back to our set up our turns here for turn 1. Not a lot happened there. As you can imagine, on a 6x4 foot board, it's mostly about movement. And yes, it's 6x4, because as you can see, we like cavalry. And the 6x4 tends to make the cavalry a little less. You can't just cover all areas of the board. You have to commit. Even your cavalry has to commit. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our first turn of the game, and we'll see what happens, and we'll be right back. As I said, turn 1 was kind of simple. Not a lot of stuff went on. We've got our Palantir in the center of the board, and you can see the big old Gondor icon here. That's just going to represent who has priority. So Gondor, first turn priority, usually it's the last thing you want for so many reasons, but they ended up with it. Now what we're going to do over here is I'm going to show you again. You can get an overview. Now over here, now I'm going to move that icon around, so that is your Dragon Knight over there, and here's Amdur. He's right back. I see the guy with the cape, and yes, I can circle him. There is Amdur, and Dragon Knight is in here, and this right over here, right there. Obviously your Wraith over there. You can see the movement. So you had gonna move this way. This was a little bit tentative over here because, well, the only thing he's gonna have to shoot at would be these guys, and I just don't want that to happen. Actually, he still did get to shoot even at this range, but fortunately for me, he rolled a pair of 1s and he still missed with the 1 shot. So I thought I had stayed far enough away. Turns out it wasn't, and he was still able to get a shot in there. Army of the Dead, they advanced as far as they could with their 6, but you can see, remember I drew that little line, you can see how I was able to advance that extra 3 inches with that war drum, which is sitting over here with my knights. Now, maybe I should have done a little war drum icon also, but you can see our Palantir right in here. He is now effectively, yes, he can shoot through this window. Actually, I think, no, this is where he shot. Now, we don't allow pre-measuring in the game. I know it's, I believe in the regular game, it's in the rules, you can pre-measure. We've always just not been in favor of that. So I do believe actually he took his shot here. Obviously, I think he made his in the way roll. So it is what it is. That was the only place he could go because obviously I had pretty much tried to line up the forest and the army of the dead to keep that bolt thrower from killing any infantry, because we're going to need those, because look what is going to be making its way here. There's pretty much nothing I can do about this. I'm doing this here again because we're trying to sweep around potentially. Now, this cavalry with the war drum can still react. So remember, I got 15 inches of move here. He's got 10. So they could still, if need be, swing back around this way. Now I'm going to go over here. Just get a little bit of a closer look. You can see kind of what they saw. And this, when I look at this, this is a whole bunch scarier. When I see this and I just see this right here, I go, oh my goodness. How in the world was, ow. I'm just, wow. This is a scary picture right here, especially with all these guys sitting right on top of it. And I thought I was in a good spot. And I realized, when I see it from here, maybe not so much. Obviously, we've got our little Boromir icon over here. Let's go over here. Turn for our Army of the Dead. You can see we got our Palantir highlighted over here. We've got our Wraith over here. So again, he can do a couple things. He can maybe try and get back here, maybe do some spell type things, or he breaks off here. These guys maybe just try and go after this bolt thrower here. Maybe I lose one or two guys in the meantime, but maybe I can take this thing out. What I'd learn later on is that all this stuff counts for breakpoint purposes. Even this thing, yes, even the bolt thrower, that counts as a separate deal. And when you kill the crew, this is still around. So that got also interesting at the end of the game. We're still relearning. I'm relearning the game. Rich is relearning, and our Waleed, he's sort of picking it up from new. He's much newer than we are. Now, again, a quick overview, and you saw where the moves were. Priority was going to be a big deal for turn 2. So you can see not a whole bunch happened here. The subsequent turns, yeah, more eventful. Now we're going to set those turns up, and we'll be right back with that all-important second turn and see who gets the priority. So when you look at the upper left-hand corner, you see the Eye of Sauron. That means priority established for Easterlings and Morghul Knights. That was handy because they needed to snatch that Palantir, and believe it or not, they marched up to it, they rolled the 4 or better, I think it was a 5, and they secured ownership of that Palantir. I was really grateful because, as you'll see, they were about to get kind of mobbed. So, as we set this up here, Dragon Knight, you can see where he is, Amdur over here, King of the Dead, and there is your Palantir that's sitting right there. Now we go over here, and obviously Easterlings got to move first. They got to set up a battle line and some early combats. Now that's the reason why I've got the photos here, because I don't know. I'm gonna try and get to my whiteboard over here and circle the king. Why does that not want to work? There we go. Alright, let's just do that again. There we go. Let's see if there we go. I just needed to move it up to the top. Sorry about that. So right over here is where your king is. And your Dragon Knight, he's blocked by the banner. So you're just going to have a face-off right here between these two guys. And Amdur, see him right here. I may switch this color too. But he is your caped crusader over here with a nice little, you can see this, a halo of Dragon Knights and cataphracts around basically the guy with the Palantir, who's sitting in the middle of all of this, obviously with Boromir and his crew headed this way. And your army that they've swept around to this side, trying to, again, double up on as many of the dragon knights as possible. Now, obviously your Morghul knights here, they're just pretty much all they can do is just move around to the side. I don't think, yeah, there was really nothing that could happen except they're just kind of, maybe can they stay out of range of that bolt thrower over there. Now, again, Palantir, you can see we've got him a little shot right there. Just so hard to just show him. Now, in future games when I have a little bit more time, I'll be able to set up some more rich photographs than this. This is just an experiment. I didn't even know I was going to be doing this. The idea popped into my head. Let's give this a shot. So let's get to some of the fighty fisticuffs type of stuff. Now, it looks like my whiteboard is in good shape. We're going to circle the king. And yeah, these guys are actually in contact. No, they are actually... No, that is not this turn. So actually the king was going to be beaten up on some swords here. And you can see pretty much everything. That's why this little counter is here. And again, I'm going to draw this here. There's your banner over there. So I might try a different color next time, but I think you can see those blue lines. There was an awful lot of 2-on-2 fights here. And I believe not a whole lot happened. I was able to, I think, make almost all the courage rolls except maybe for this one. Now the war the Warhorn, that definitely helped negate his -1. So I still have my courage of 4. Okay, what do we got here? Again, pikes backing these guys up. So it was sort of a mirror match here. The one thing is we each had banners, but I had the fight skill for the most part. And that was really, really helpful. Again, forming a battle line. And I believe, actually, believe it or not, the King of the Dead had to use might to win his combat. So it was kind of a push right here in the middle. And as we get to our board thing, so what we've got, you sort of have something like this. So there's your Army of the Dead, which swept around this way. Your Easterling line looks a bit like this. Your Palantir guy is about here. And you've got Amdur here and the king. They're basically on opposite sides of this big old tree. And like I said, when I do my terrain boards, you don't have these big gigantic trees. They're thin because they're actual trees. They're actual branches with moss and flock on them. So I think it'll be a little bit easier for you to see that when I go to do reports on my terrain board. I have a little bit more control over that. So hopefully that gives you a little sense of what's happening. Again, this is our first set of combats. And now, obviously, Gondor can start working their way in this way. If I had priority, maybe I want to do something like this. Go around this way, although Gondor could still respond here. At this point, it would come down to maybe heroic moves, heroic whatever, to see if I got it first, they might call their own heroic action. But what we'll do is we'll set up turn 3, and we'll get to that next. Like I said, you got the knights moving from the side, and Easterlings with the wall. And we'll potentially continue this fight over here in turn 3. Here we are with turn 3, and as you can see, priority stayed with the Easterlings. Movement, the big thing was you've got your, over here, some action as the cavalry starts to move, your Morghul knights, and also, more importantly, I think the ring wraith got to about here. I'm going to draw that there, and we've got Army of the Dead like so, and like this. Now, I didn't necessarily close this way too much with the cav because of what was coming over this way here. Now, what I wanted to try and do was an immobilize with the ring wraith on the king, just to basically, he could defend himself, but he wouldn't be able to attack. Keep in mind, we've got the war priest, and now let's go here to our our combat scene. So we've got a war priest right over here, so I've circled him in red. Remember what we want to do? We want to use his might and all his magical abilities as soon as possible. You've got Dragon Knight over here. And yes, the tree is in the way, but they are actually in contact with each other. Just things kept falling over, and we said, the heck with this, because they're both metal miniatures, real heavy metal figures. And my plan was to maybe do the immobilize here. Well, I don't even think I made the spell, so he didn't have to use any will on that. However, we were able to cast, I believe it is Blade Wrath via here, and I believe it was the channeled version. I said, what the heck, I'll just use the dice, make him, I made him strength 10, and he also did a heroic combat, or heroic fight, and that made him, I think, at least fight skill 8. But in any case, the king, who I think he might have even been out of might at this point, he just kind of had to say, well, I got my fight skill, maybe I win, maybe I don't. He has the banner right over here. Now the Dragon Knight, again, he's potentially win that fight, making him strength 10. This is how I was able to kill Aragorn in a similar fashion, where I also had him trapped. Here I don't have the king trapped. But I think I was, again, fight skill 8, strength 10, and his defense is 8. So without this, I need a 6 by a 6, which is, I think, unlikely, even with 3 attacks. So we are able to get those spells. Actually, I think I was fight 9. I might have even been fight 9. It did matter because the king was still fight 5. Now, I did actually manage to win the combat here. And I'll just kind of, right over here, we had 3 potential wounds on him, and that number 3 is all I needed to roll. And with 3 dice, I rolled a 1, and a 1, and a 3. So I did 1 whole wound on him, which he saved with fate, which left kind of one of these right here. A little bit of a sad face. So we're not able to pull that off in spectacular fashion. Now, you've also got your Palantir right here. This would have been an important thing. There was also a series of 2-on-2 combats here. He could not quite work his way around, and I just didn't want to commit. I wanted to keep this formation here more as a response to the Gondor knights coming from this way. So I know it now looks like it just graffitied all over the screen, but look at that. We can get rid of that. Now, yeah, here's your banner guy with the red. So I think I'll use this red from now on. It's going to show up a little bit easier, I think, against the rest of the board. Now we're stuck here, and turn 4 priority is going to be even more important, because I do believe at this point, coming from this direction here, those Gondor knights, they are in range to make some charges, at least along this. So I may be doing a lot of shielding over here, even with the pike support. There is, Glittering Horde over here for the Cav. They have shield wall, but as I would find out, shield wall, unless you're 3 deep, it's kind of almost impossible to keep this when you start getting pushed. So, yeah, we'll see what happens again. We're going to set this up for turn 4, and we'll see what happens with that all-important priority roll. And it gets interesting. This is going to be the key turn of the game. So we'll be right back with that. So turn 4 started out with, and by the big giant white tree of Gondor in the corner, you can see that they had priority. And also this was going to be one of many, many roll-offs that they won, because obviously with them being in a position to charge along a broad swath that was pretty much like this, Boromir from here and his crowd, and the king and this crowd, and you even had some army that had peeled off over here to charge the Morghul knights. I said, oh my goodness, this is getting ugly. So I called I think it was a heroic move. Yeah, and that went to these guys. Yes, one of many roll-offs that was going to go to the so-called forces of good. However, I will direct your attention to this item right over here. That's your Palantir. Remember, the war drum's still over here, and my infantry moves 9, and the war priest, I think, kind of hightailed it over here, and you can bet Freddy over here with Palantir, he's going to start moving. Now, this is where I start to forget that, if I do this, it's kind of worth more points. But I think what happened is, and this can, you freak out sometimes at losing this roll off here. All I could see was, okay, he moves 9. He moves 9. I got to do this. I kept looking at this here. I also saw potentially the bolt thrower shooting something here, and now that some Army of the Dead had peeled off this way, I wasn't sure if my Morghul Knight shield, or basically student body right here, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to pull that off. So, because I thought I was going to need my plus movement here on the drum this way. So let's see if we can get into our scene here. Now, yeah, this is the one we want. Now I can get a little better handle. See, we've got our Palantir guy, War Priest over here. He's hanging around because I think he still has 1 point of might left and still 1 point of will for some casting. Here we haven't actually photographed the movement of this yet. I think I was still too much of a state of shock over that lost roll-off. And you can see over here up in the corner where these Army of the Dead have peeled off to try and engage some of those knights there. Now, I will say, yeah, I'm going to go back to this scene over here. Now, up here we've got our Wraith, and he tried to do a zap over here on the banner, just black dart. If I can take him out, I mean, we got a whole bunch of fighting going on right here. And it's bad enough that Boromir charged in here, and he counts as a banner. I'm trying to maybe just get rid of some banners. So, that didn't work, of course. And I don't know if I tried the channeled version. I might have even had to try the channel version because of the distance. So he was going through his will pretty fast. But you can see there's a lot of locked horns here. Dragon Knight still in the fight over here. Now, I think it did pair off that Boromir did get into Amdur. And because of this fence here, I think I think these guys, they basically tried to move around this way. I don't think they were actually able to successfully charge in. And I wanted to keep the drum, because this right here, what you're looking at, is potentially between, 8 to 10 points. So, right, for me, this is what matters. And just think of this as we play out the rest of this game. These 3 dudes right here, that's pretty much all I'm worried about. They are obviously thinking about capturing buildings, and they're probably thinking about killing right here, taking out Amdur, right? So the combat that happens between, and let's just do something like between Boromir, and let's grab Amdur over here. Where is he? Ah, there you are. Well, let's go back to our whiteboard over here. Boromir, of course, he, with his might and everything else, he wins the combat because I believe moving to here got the priest out of the way, or too far away to do that same blade rat, and I forgot to, because, well, I did the heroic move, lost it, so I could not do the heroic strike. Boromir wins the fight, and that's fine. So he does 3 wounds, of course, and, well, I only have 3 wounds. So and actually I happen to have 3 fate. I'm thinking, I'll lose 1, maybe 2. Unfortunately, I rolled, I think it was a 1, a 1, and a 1. Yes. So I had to take 3 might. Yes, we'll just draw that over here. 3 might. to save one wound, and that led to, once again, one of these for the Easterlings. Now, a little sad face there. That was not what I was expecting. I thought, well, even if I lose the fight here, I should probably have 2 wounds left. Amdur can stay in the fight. Yay. Didn't quite work out that way. Over here, this was more of a Prada fight. Not a lot of death going on. I think here a few guys ended up in one-on-ones, but mostly 2-on-2s. Wherever I was in a one-on-one, I shielded. And over here too, back this way, where you had some of the, let's see, yeah, I'm going to go to this scene over here. So we had some of our Morghul Knights here. There were a few guys that got charged. They countercharged. He shielded, I shielded. Not a whole lot of fatalities anywhere along this line, except for Amdur, pretty much. The big nasty thing that happened here. That was unfortunate. So, like I said, I was not real thrilled with what happened here with this. And now priority basically means Amdur dies, and believe they were obsessed with taking out Amdur. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the all-important turn 5, and we'll see what happens. Can Amdur stay alive? Can we kill this king over here? Can we do anything to these Army of the Dead guys? Because they ain't dying. They are not dying for me. So what we'll do is we'll set this up, and we'll be right back. So as you can tell by that big ugly white tree over there in the corner, priority stays with good. And now this is where things get real dicey. No pun intended, or is there a pun intended? Because you have Amdur over here. Well, he got himself no might, because he had to use all 3 of it to make a 1 into a 4 to try and stay alive. Entor, and let's give him, I'm going to have to actually give this guy a name. So we've got our Easterling captain. He was roundabout here. This is on a cataphract on horseback. He would prove to be very pivotal, because he had might, and he could at least try to do a heroic move away from Boromir and his band of merry knights, which were definitely looking to make some mincemeat out of Amdur for sure. They were really after him. We do the roll-off, yet another roll-off, which hadn't been going so well at all for evil, but the reason why we have this big old picture of our captain here is because he wins that roll-off, and thus begins the great skedaddle. And of course, now I would have loved to use the war drum on everybody, including our Palantir carrier over here, but you have to end up within a certain amount of 6 inches, right, of the person that calls it, or in this case, the cataphract that calls it. So what we ended up with was some mostly counter charges at this point. It's all about staying alive, because remember, everything that matters is heading this way. All this stuff over here, the Ring Wraith, maybe threatening to do a little. I think at this point, this is where he does a bit of, transfix, right? And it actually did work. So I was able to transfix that bolt thrower sitting over here, because I had a whole bunch of my Morghul Knights over here kind of charging and counter-charging, doing their thing. They didn't need to be shot in the face when they weren't engaged. So that was handy over here. The first time he'd actually gotten some kind of a spell off. Now, unfortunately, I didn't. There was so much going on here, and again, this is not in the control of my own studio here, so I didn't quite have a picture of it. But we've got our same picture from before. So this time again, we've got, where's my Amdur over here? So he ran to about where this war drum is, and again, Boromir, just these guys here, they charged in this away. It was just a desperate thing, sacrificial charge. I think even a banner, went over. It was all about just creating a wall here so that, because this is points denial, right? Or save an Amder over here, that probably saves me between 1 to 2 points, right? 1 and 3 points. Saving him, we know that saves me 3. And over here, it saves me at least, well, at this point, 5 in the direction that he's headed over here. So as pivotal as this turn was, there wasn't necessarily a lot that happened, because now I do believe that some of the knights over here, they actually started to be ground down a little bit. Because remember, I charged them. They're not going to get their lances. At this point, I think our fight skills were the same, because that's another Boromir ability, is he can make those boost up their fight skill. And it was banners galore here for the forces of good, because of, one here, Boromir sitting over here. We each had banners. Like I said, I think I did some more shielding over here with some of these guys. Now, this sets up yet another important turn. I mean, I keep saying the next one's really important. Well, now that we are this close to each other and locked up, I mean, it's less critical, I suppose, for me. It would be nice to finally get priority one of these days. But now Amder is, everybody's safely over here. So again, the biggest points denial and points gain is now, to me, at least as I see it, kind of out of reach here, unless there's a collapse over here. Now, I'm going to look and see. Yeah, alright, so yes, we do have something that happened here. Is our Dragon Knight. He finally succumbed to the king. He lost the fight. I think he was out of might also. So I just lost the, I think I lost the roll off. Yeah, that's what it was. Each used might, lost the roll off. End of the Dragon Knight. So that's how that goes. He went from killing Aragorn to being killed by King of the Dead. And remember, we had the transfix over here with our basically homemade custom ring wraith. So we'll see what happens with turn 6 now, and we'll set up some screens for you, and we'll get right to it. So I looked back at my notes, and I realized that turn 6 is where, sadly, our brave Dragon Knight buys it in the face. And as you look over here, guess who still had priority? And guess who won the inevitable roll-off? And once again, our captain kind of kept... Actually, I believe that was the War Priest had to use, I think, his might to try and call the heroic move, but again, lost the roll-off. Now, over on the side here, you can see we've got Boromir, Amder. That's kind of in this area off to the right or left. We'll show that. But here, you can see we've got our Wraith over here. What I wanted to do is just basically, and you can see that was still immobilized over there. So he pretty much, this thing didn't get to do very much. As in pretty much darn near nothing. So I think this is the second turn in a row that he was threatening this. Actually, he threatened this, and I think he ended up doing this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to our next screen over here. Now you can, this is a little better view of what happened. So you've got Amder, who moved out of harm's way. You've got a whole line of fights over here. Whole line of fights. And now we've got some, here's my war drum, sadly, he got charged. My banner gets charged over here. But at least this time, Boromir, he's charging these guys. Now, it's still not going to work out for him because he has something where if he wins the fight, he gets to roll on everybody. Instead of you have to pick one guy or focus the attack. Everybody gets hit with a whole bunch of attacks. Well, a few Easterlings, they bit the dust over here, courtesy of Boromir. But like I said, getting Amder out of the way, that was key. So you see these little counters here. We got the cavalry charge counter. I was able to, at least because I was starting to outnumber, enough of these knights were starting to die, and I was getting enough numbers here. And because I hit, obviously I lost the Dragon Knight, but the rest of my troops are pretty much staying alive. That was pretty helpful. Now we are going to look over here at scene 3. So you can see, so instead of continuing this thing going after the bolt thrower, that was a turn 5 thing. You can see he tried to join in here just to take out this pesky banner bearer who was prone from the last turn. I could not get enough there to trap him, but I thought, okay, at least we charged him. We got him on fight skill. He's on the ground, for crying out loud. We also had some charges and counter charges, but look at this. 1, 2, 3 charges here. This is where not so much the numbers game for breaking happens, but it just gives me more freedom of movement, because this cavalry here just starts over these next couple of turns is going to start to fade away, which then maybe leads to a charge of that nasty device over there. So again, Dragon Knight, he was already gone. Palantir, and I believe, yeah, Palantir is still heading this way now, but he's now his movement 6. Let me draw a little 6 for you, because our drummer boy is sitting over here, and that's a little bit too far. I basically, at this point, I'm saying, you know what, that's not going to happen, because he's already starting to move some of his army of the dead this way. So what we'll do is we'll set up turn 7 for you. Who knows, maybe evil actually wins priority at some point during the rest of this game. So we'll be right back with that in just a second. So happy days are here again as we see the glorious Eye of Sauron. Yes, at last, priority for the forces of evil. Now, I believe there was, Boromir only had a couple of might left, and I think those are trying to save those. And I think my captain still had 1 might on him, so they did not call heroic moves at that point. You can see Palantir Man, he is just hightailing it out of here, and he also has his buddy, the War Priest, because all of his stuff at this point is now expended. There's nothing more he can do. So right here, just these 2, 8 points, and you can see they're starting to put it not just a good distance between them, but I mean, and Amdur is still over here. Basically, I was he was bait at this point. I said, you know what, if I can at least keep these 8, even if they get Amdur over here, that's just not going to be enough to make up for your 5 points of the Palantir. So if I can just keep Palantir Toten guy here alive, I'll be okay. But there definitely was, you can see they're starting to thin out here. You can see I'm starting to outdo the Gondor Cav over here. Boromir, yes, he's still alive, but he's all of a sudden he's finding out he's got less and less knights with him. And that was pretty much what turn 7 was. Now in the fight that was going on over here, that had a little, that was more of a, no, nothing there. What, guys shielding, certainly no army of the dead were killed, I can tell you that. What we'll do is we'll move on then to turn 8, and we'll see if we can maybe take out that bolt thrower. Who knows? I think we're probably close enough at that point. We'll set up those screens, and we'll be right back with turn 8. So the priority, as you can see, continues with the forces of the Easterling and Morghul Knights, and like it says, hold the line. Hold, and look at what we've got. I mean, it is this. Is that arc right there? This is the arc that we've got to hold, and we also have our captain right in here. It's another, like I said, a thing that ensures nobody tries to do a heroic move to just kind of counteract this. Now there were some charges right here. I basically sacrificed some more foot troops over here to Boromir. Unfortunately, you can start to see there's less knights. Well, we got a bunch of army of the dead over here. So I'm going to have to either decide, do I bring my knights around in the back here and hit these guys, or go for the bolt thrower, because breakpoints are starting to become a thing, because I believe the game ends when someone's reduced to 25%. I want to bring this up because, well, here, we've got our bolt thrower over here. That could finally be, maybe, pushing the Gondorians closer to their breakpoint. I killed the crew, right? And that's when I learned that the gun stays around. So that was kind of unfortunate, whatever. The Ring Wraith, he is now starting to run really low on his will, and when he runs out of will, he goes away. He's gone. We still have our exit stage, well, bottom right here for our Palantir carrier. Amder still hanging out over here. Like I said, I've given up on this move. That's just not going to happen. You also I'm starting to see some of the Army of the Dead moving off this way. I'm thinking, well, they're either trying to cut off this move because, this is now gone, or maybe occupying houses is their thing. So this is where I like, they have no idea what my secret objective is. I don't know what theirs is. Now, like I said, we're trying to hold the line here. This was just a series of shields. This whole thing here was just shield, 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 because you can see I'm running low on my supports here, and this is all a bunch of 2-on-1s. I got pretty lucky here, and then I won the fights and pushed them back. Actually, I think what you're seeing here is the end result of the fights. Everybody pretty much pushed back, except here where Boromir, I think, killed yet another Easterling Dragon Knight on foot. So most of these are pushes over here. Hey, for me, a push, it's almost as good as a kill. Maybe not quite, but hey, I'll take it. I will take it. What we also have here is we're still going after this guy, and I believe we were finally able to take out the banner bear. Again, took my wraith over here. We can see we started to actually I snuck a banner bear over here to try and aid these fights. And pretty much these knights would be gone by the end of this round over here. So that's pretty much what you had happen in turn 8. It was nice getting rid of this banner guy, but as you can see, he was kind of too far away here, and Boromir was there anyway. So Boromir here, look at, he's got this 6-inch cone of basically re-roll over there. So it is what it is. But remember, we still have, keep this in mind, there's a point of might over here on this captain. That's important to know as we move towards turn 9. And we're going to set up our screens and we'll be right back with that. Here we are for turn 9. And we'll keep the priority, we'll reveal that in a second here. But this right here, this is kind of the tell-all, as we have Wrong Way J right here. This is where I realized, I really could have been going the other way and probably still gotten my extra 2 points out of it. That would have basically sealed the game. No matter what they did, they could have killed Andor, done all that kind of stuff. It could have none of that stuff would have mattered. It just would have been like, you know what, there's pretty much no point in doing anything because, guys, I got 10 points sitting here. Where's your 10 going to come from? So yeah, this is, what is it? Pay attention to the scenario, and it's something I always, especially if there's a secret mission or something like that, always read it, and then read it again. There's just too much going on here. I did not do that. So that's me being me. And here you go. You get to see, look at that big old ugly white tree sitting there. Yes, they have priority. However, we still got this guy over here. We got Mr. Captain, right? Oh, we shouldn't even scroll on him. I mean, who would have thought Captain versus Boromir would be the big deal over here? Another roll-off. So I basically won 2 roll-offs the entire game out of all of them, and they were too numerous to count, but the 2 that were won, they were biggies, because this was another kind of a saving thing right here. You'll see as it plays out in some of the other photos, he runs off the board. So that's when I realized I should have gone this way, but we went this way. We got our 5 points. That's in the bag. Now we started to have some debates about, okay, does he count as or does he count as a casualty for breakpoint? Now, as I kept, I don't know, maybe I was really emphasizing the point that I didn't want to be broken. So that, ooh, Jim doesn't want to be broken. We should try and break him. And now remember, this guy over here, our Wraith, he's running out of will real fast, and they couldn't. I couldn't reveal here that I actually wanted him to go away, just like through loss of will points. And I wanted to be broken because remember that +1 I was telling you about? That Warhorn gave me from the Morghul Knights? Well, I really wanted that to happen. You're also going to start to see, I'm not sure if I've got a... You can see, oops, sorry, wrong scene, we want this one. Do you see a lot of Gondor Knights over here? No, you don't. You got the crew over here, they're hapless crew, so actually they didn't die. Somehow, I don't know why that was written in my notes, I think it was a misprint there. But the Morghul Knights here, they are starting to own this part of the board. So I've got mobility here, I got terror-causing troops, and they have the ability to swing around, do a lot of things. Maybe contest forest pieces, because at this point I'm not quite sure if they're after buildings or after forest pieces. So I'll go back over here again. So like I said, he's off the board, but they're starting to get spread out because remember, you've got dead hanging out this way. They're even starting to move this direction over here because they're trying to chase me down as everybody starts moving this way. Because with my heroic move, that's pretty much what happened. Is everybody just went this way, which led now are they going to chase me here, or are they going to start going? So a lot of the Army of the Dead, they start peeling off this way to go after all of those Morghul Knights that you see in this scene. It's what I love about Lord of the Rings is there's, especially now that you impart those secret missions, there's a bluff. You're bluffing for might. You're bluffing for, heck, I'm bluffing to make them break me because I want them to. Because now with this guy off the board, I'm that much closer. And just keep in mind as these last couple of turns play out here, this notion that I'm trying to spread them out. And I'll reveal that here as we set up turn 10. You'll start to find out what that was all about too. So we'll be right back with that. For turn 10, priority returns to the forces of Gondor and the Army of the Dead. And you can see, like the title says, shield wall. What are we trying to do? We are just trying to hold this line. Basically just shield, shield, shield. I think even some of my horses were shielding at this point. Just to stay alive. You can see there's still maybe one or two getting closer to that break point, and I mention that because, well, this is where they're going to learn a little lesson about the Easterlings special rule, which is once they are broken, their morale goes up by 1, or their courage goes up by 1. So between the Warhorn and their regular courage and this additional +1, now they're sitting there, let's see, base 4 + 2. They're sitting at courage 6, which for evil, that's kind of spiffy. And look at my big old group here. I'm just going to make sure that I've got this whiteboard in the right. Look at this big old group over here, and you can see, yeah, Amdur is pointed this way, War Priest is pointed this way. But look at how they're all. You got the king over here, Boromir. He's sitting way over here. And there's not many. There's not many knights left up here. Remember, we've been killing those guys off. And remember, the king has that -1 to courage, right? So all of a sudden they're starting to separate. So he's losing his -1. So now instead of me with all these actually now I'm at courage 7. Yeah, because he's gone. I've got the Warhorn. I got plenty of things that are lifting up my courage, and the thing that's making my courage go away, that's going away. Boromir, the banner for the Army of the Dead is dead. Boromir is now separated, so we're going to go over here as we bring up this scene. So Boromir he's actually starting to, him and his guys, they're going to start heading this way. Army of the Dead's heading this way for this building. There's a curse fight that's going to happen for a couple of turns over here where I try and kill the crew, and then the army of the dead's chasing me this way too. King is headed this way, and I got this little posse sitting over here, right? There's some cataphracts in there. There's still Amdur. Still even have the war priest, so there's some fight skill in here. My captain is also over here. So as I start to spread these guys out, I'm trying to thin them down. This guy's off the board. Now my courage is even higher. So my hope is isolate those army of the dead just in these little places. And just see them little hash marks I'm drawing. I'm trying to isolate them. This way maybe I can go some 2-on-1s. And that's what we're going to try and set up for turns 11 and maybe future turns. We'll see what happens, and we'll be right back with that. For turn 11, priority belonged to, once again, the forces of evil, as I make my air quotes. Look at all these charge counters over here. And yes, these guys have lances, and yes, these guys have a higher fight skill than this crew of the bolt thrower. And yes, not only did the bolt thrower guys stay alive, but they actually won combats. And see a little flame sitting over there? Yeah, that's where a Morghul knight died, and really wasn't expecting them, or his horse was injured, because for whatever reason, going after horses was sort of a big thing for Gondor. And I had no Morghul knights on foot, so we just used a little flame. So yeah, that's why he got that little flame in the corner over there. Now, like I said, remember, Army of the Dead, they were going in here trying to... I was able to draw them over here, because none of this mattered for me. Now this, you see these guys moving off to the corner. This was important for them. This is a 3-point move over here towards their house, that building that they've got to hold. Again, here, all this is doing is it's getting closer to the end of the game for me. Even if all these guys die, does not matter. But what it does do, it keeps them all away from the king. So for me, for me to go after them, I believe I am now actually a courage 7. So base 4 +1 for the horn. There was... yeah, so I had enough here, 6 or 7, whatever, but I was not having any problems charging these guys. So almost the same courage they were. Now over here, you can see we got ourselves a bit of a posse over here. We got Amdur, the captain. Now, of course, no might. There is no might left over here. That's just, might's all gone. But there's not a whole lot of Army of the Dead. You got the king, you got a little buddy with a stick here. A few more would trickle in, I think maybe from this side over here. But now at this point I see him going for the ruins, and I think, okay, this is all new to me, so I thought, okay, maybe if I can hold a couple of these ruins. I didn't know it was just one. So as long as they hold one, they get their 3 points. These guys are just going to come back and contest this, because now again, it does not matter. I can pretty much see they don't have the ability to overcome the Palantir points. So these guys, they've been hightailing it the other way. They're going to start coming back this way now. As we play out these last couple of turns, you'll see we're going to come back here, and we're going to... Apparently this statue was really cool or really valuable. We'll see what happened for the fight for this ruin next. These final couple of turns, they were a little bit strange, to say the least. So you can see we've still got this bolt thrower here. The crew is dead. They are long since gone. I mean, look, we even have an Easterling, we even have a cataphract trying to charge over here. We've got Army of the Dead trying to finish off here. What else do we have? We have Morghul Knights, and this little Morghul Knight on foot, he practically survived till pretty much the end of the game. He just kept... I think at one point he was surrounded by 4 or 5 Army of the Dead, and he shielded and somehow won the fight. You can see we have some cavalry charges here. These guys were just kind of thinning each other down, and a whole lot of... Well, it was entertaining because, little bonfires running around the board. This was a little bit more interesting over here. So again, you can see we've got our fight there, but see, look at these sneaky little guys here. Cheeky little army of the dead in that ruin. Again, we've got, so they're looking for their 3 points. You can see we've got the King of the Dead over here. And here's some of the last of our cav. We've even got some infantry support here. And I think there actually still is a banner somehow alive in all of this. So these guys, they're coming back. Again, I didn't happen to look at the rules on this, and I thought if I can at least maybe take out these guys. He's not the army leader, obviously, Boromir. There's nothing I can do with him. He's off here chasing my drum. So, and again, I'm trying to get in that one building that's over here. Just, again, not quite sure how that's all supposed to work. I'll remember it now, that's for sure. But what we'll do is we'll head on to turn 13, and we'll see if we got a conclusion for you. So we move on to lucky turn 13, and I suppose lucky in that this was the last turn of the game, because who don't you see over here? There is no Wraith anymore. He's out of will, and he is kaput. He is gone. You can see right here this little gang up on the poor little molten Morghul Knight over there. I'll just call him Multi or something like that. We've got some Army of the Dead, so all the Morghul Knights over here are dead, which is handy because that is going to get us to that break point. Boromir has decided to join this little fight going on over here, and you can see I could not quite shift the King of the Dead off of this ruin. And I thought this was going to make some kind of a difference. Turns out it meant nothing because, again, this little house over here already had some folks in it. And we'll show it right here. So again, we got the Palantir, and we've got our 3 points over here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into our tallies here and see what the final score was. And for the forces of so-called good, I believe they got a point for obviously wounding Amdur. They weren't able to kill him. The enemy broke in. They got a point for that, and they did achieve their secret objective by holding that building. Then we go over to our other forces over here, and you can see the enemy broke in, yes, got my secret objective. And where's the difference in the game? It is right there with your Palantir at 5 points. That's a total of 9, and what that means victory. That means victory for the united forces of the Easterlings and their Lord and Master and Savior Sauron. Now, I appreciate you guys watching this. Now, this was a total experiment. I had no idea how this was going to work. I had to make a ton of screens here. This took many hours just to make this. It took 2 days just to make all of these screens and these icons, but now I have these, so I can do these again. I think I've got more of the whiteboard figured out and how to use that. I tried to test it, but it's until you actually use the thing in anger, well, you start to learn a lot that way. I will, after this, I'll show you some info about the Patreon page and more on the YouTube channel where you can check out tons of painting videos. I mean, I'm always doing live sessions a couple times a week. It's really fun to hang out with my Lord of the Rings buddies there. I mean, it's almost become a little bit of late night Lord of the Rings club, depending on where you live. I'm going to try and do more of these reports here. I might do some video ones, maybe splice video and still photography together if it's possible. So I think I have another setup coming up. And I got tons of terrain. We're going to be making Rohan boards, Dol Amroth boards, Arnor boards, you name it. We're going to be making dead marshes. I want to have lots of fun terrain things to fight over. But for now, we'll celebrate this victory, and I'll catch you on the next video. If you can drop a like on this, you'll want to subscribe. Then you get notifications for those really cool hanging out painting Lord of the Rings sessions. So thanks again, everybody, and I'll catch you on the next video.